Om Tava Kathamritam Tapta Jeevanam Kavibireeditam Kalmashapaham Shravanamangalam Srimadaadatam Bhuvi Grinanti Ye Bhurida Janaha. Sri Sri Ramakrishna Kathamrita, the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, recorded by M. Mahendranath Gupta, an apostle of the Master. Sri Ramakrishna Bhakta Sange, Kamala Kutire, Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Yukta Keshav Chandra Sen. Sri Ramakrishna in the company of devotees, and Kamal Kutir with Sri Keshav Chandra Sen. ब्राह्म समाज इत्यादि स्थाने अनेक बार ठाकुर कथा छले केशव चंद्र सेन के उपदेश दिया छिलेन। नाना पथ दिया नाना धर्मेर भीतर दिया ईश्वर लाभ होते पारे. It is possible to realize God traversing along so many paths and the practice of so many varieties of religions. মাঝে মাঝে নির্জনে সাধন ভজন করে ভক্তি লাভ করে সংসারে থাকা যায়. It is possible to live in this world after performing sadhana in solitude and acquiring bhakti. জনকাদি ব্রহ্মজ্ঞান লাভ করে সংসারে ছিলেন, ব্যাকুল হয়ে তাকে ডাকতে হয়, তবে দেখা দেন. People like Janaka Raja lived in the world after acquiring Brahmajnana. If one calls upon God with intense longing, then he shall reveal himself to you and give his darshan. তোমরা যা করো নিরাকার সাধন তা খুব ভালো. He is telling the Brahmo devotees, they believe in Nirakar, God without form. The kind of sadhana that you do, Nirakara sadhana, oh, that is excellent. ডাকতে হয় তবে দেখা দেন. তোমরা যা করো নিরাকার সাধন সে খুব ভালো. So you should call upon him. This is a very important statement which we find in the Gospel of Ramakrishna. What is the sadhana in spiritual life? So many varieties of practices are mentioned in Hindu religion, Christian religion, Islam, so many varieties of religions. And in the Hindu religion, the Shaktas, the Vaishnavas, the Nirakaravadis, the Brahmajnanis, so many people have given so many different varieties of sadhana to be able to realize God and know the infinite reality. The simplest sadhana which Sri Ramakrishna has given us in this modern age where a person has very little time and energy to perform sadhana, what is that? Dakar motan dakte hoy. Dako means call. Call upon God. The idea being, if we believe that there is one reality who listens to our prayers, maybe he is with form, maybe without form, but there is some power somewhere which is running the affairs of this universe. Even science believes in their power. I am very fond of quoting Albert Einstein, one of the greatest scientists of all time, in which he said, "My religion consists of a humble adoration of an illimitable intelligence which our dull faculties can comprehend in the most primitive form." There's an illimitable, huge, infinite intelligence which is running the affairs of this universe, which is controlling nature. The sun and the moon and the stars and the nebulae, their orbits and their movements, the macrocosmic external world, and the atoms and the molecules and the subatomic particles and the microcosmic world in the external nature. And the internal nature, the mind, the thoughts, spirit and so on, the entire thing is a continuum what we call the space, time, matter, consciousness continuum. Albert Einstein, the special theory of relativity in 1905, showed the continuum of space-time is that space and time are not two different entities. One cannot think of space without time and time without space. So he called it space-time continuum. And the general theory of relativity extended it by saying space-time matter continuum. What Vedanta has talked about millions of years ago is space, time, matter, consciousness continuum. What you call the physical world, the mental world, and the subtlest of the subtle, the spiritual world, form one continuum. This is easily realized through the study of the Taittiriya Upanishad, in which a human being is considered a 5-layered personality. The physical layer called Annamaya, the vital layer, the pranic layer called the Pranamaya, and the mental layer called the Manomaya, and deeper than that, the higher intuitive layer called the Vijnanamaya, and ultimately the Anandamaya, which is the spiritual, and beyond the Anandamaya is the Nirguna Nirakara Brahman. Interestingly, every one of them is called the Atma. Atma is the self, which shows that each of these layers has an autonomous existence called the self of its own. The Annamaya Atma, Pranamaya Atma, Manomaya Atma, Vijnanamaya Atma, Anandamaya Atma. The physical self, the vital self, the mental self, the higher intuitive wisdom self, and ultimately the bliss self. What is called kosha, Annamaya kosha, Pranamaya kosha, Manomaya kosha, Vijnanamaya kosha and Anandamaya kosha are not directly supported by the text of the Upanishad. Bhagavan Bhashyakara Shankara, he talked about these koshas for a particular purpose to suit his philosophy. But the original text in the Taittiriya talks about an autonomous self. Each self being autonomous, being governed by its own laws. Each of the selves has its own laws. And they form a continuum. How do you know? Look at the text. Anyontara atma manomaya tenaisha purnaha sava esha purusha vidhayeva tenaisha purnaha tena esha purnaha. The Annamaya Atma is filled by the Pranamaya Atma. The Pranamaya Atma in turn is filled by the Manomaya Atma. The Manomaya Atma in turn is filled by the Vijnanamaya Atma. The Vijnanamaya Atma is filled by the Anandamaya Atma. Tena esha purnaha. Purna means it is filled. It is saturated. It is interpenetrated. Otaprota is a word which is very often used in the Upanishad. Otaprota, saturated, interpenetrated, filled. They form a continuum. The Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya form one continuum. Which means you can't have a demarcation between life and non-life, matter and life, and consciousness and life. Matter, life, consciousness, they form a continuum. Swami Vivekananda talks about super consciousness in his Raja Yoga book. When he spoke about super consciousness, a great revolution in psychology. Freud and others talked about the subconscious and the unconscious and conscious. Swami Vivekananda, there is a superconscious. What the Western psychologists call as the conscious, the Indian psychologists, the yogis call it the unconscious. The manas is an unconscious matter. Annamayam hi somya mana. Oh, good looking one, Somya. The mind is matter. How do you know? An experiment is performed. Chandogya Upanishad. The disciple is called and said, recite the Vedas. He beautifully recites the Vedas. Then he says, fast for 10 days. You can take a little food once in a day and water, come back. After fasting partially for 10 days, he comes back, and now and then he fumbles, he can't remember. Go back again, fast for some more time, some more days, living only on water. Comes back after a long time and says he is unable to remember much. Later on he is sent again, he fasts completely, he says, I can't remember anything. Again they say go, slowly start eating, then he gets everything back. This is a simple experiment which is performed to show that what you call the mind is actually manufactured from food. Annamayam hi somya manaha. So mind is only matter. We call mind as conscious according to the Western psychology, but the Indian, the Bharatiya Manovigyanam, it says the mind, the manas, is actually jada. Beyond the mind is the buddhi, vijnanamaya. There, the spiritual awakening first takes place. The vijnanamaya is the buddhi, which is a subtle intelligence, and this buddhi is not the ordinary buddhi, intellect, which remembers, which can repeat, which has sharp understanding of many things. No. It is the intuitive understanding of spiritual and higher truths, which we normally call as wisdom. Beyond knowledge which is there stored in the Manomaya, there is intuitive wisdom which is in the Vijnanamaya. And beyond that is the Anandamaya. So the 5-layered personality which Taittiriya Upanishad speaks about clearly demonstrates that each of these Atma, Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, Anandamaya, is filled by the other. They form a simple continuum. The demarcation between matter and life, prana, life and consciousness, Manomaya, Vijnanamaya, just doesn't exist. One is filled by the other. So you Dakar Matan Dako, that means you call on him, then the higher powers of the intuitive wisdom is opened up. It is possible for a human being to awaken the higher consciousness through intense prayer. Prayer is not petitioning to God, give him a list of what you want. Prayer is an expression of the deep longing of the soul. Suppose you have some terrible want, and in that want you feel so terribly restless, and from within there's a cry which goes up. There's no going up or coming down, but the language which you use, which says, oh God, I can't live without this. Sri Ramakrishna gives a very simple example of the intense pull, he used the word tan, means pull, which a mother feels towards a child, which a chaste wife feels for the husband, which a miser, a person is deeply attached to wealth, feels towards his possessions and wealth. Mayer Shantaner Pratitan, Shotir Patir Pratitan, Vishayer Pratitan. ये 3 टान एक होले ईश्वर के किंतु पावा जाए. Why does he give this example? Because we can actually feel it in our daily life. How deeply, suppose you love somebody deeply, it could be your children, it could be your mother or parents, it could be your wife or children, it could be your possessions. If you very deeply are drawn to something, then there's pull that you feel that itself draws you. Your whole life is concentrated upon that. You don't want anything else except that one thing which you deeply love. This is an interesting phenomenon in life. So Ramakrishna uses this imagery to show that if you call upon the Supreme Reality with tremendous longing, yearning for God, then you shall be blessed with His realization. Call upon Him with a real call. What is the real call? Dakar moton dakte hue. What is the real call? Not imagined, not fake, not feigned, but you feel a deep void within. You feel uneasy, you feel restless. Swami Ramakrishna-Ananda has a small talk, paths to realization. There he says, if you take a fish out of water and put it on a throne, give all the honor of a king or the emperor, you feed it, you honor it, and you praise it, will the fish be happy? No. The fish will cry, please put me back in water. I do not want any of these. I want to be back in my own abode. This is the kind of longing. What does it mean? It means our real abode is something else. We have strayed from there. This is not a real abode. Unfortunately, we have fallen from that abode. All the religions talk about this. When the Adam's fall is depicted in Christianity through original sin, it really means, according to Vedanta, original ignorance or avidya, mula avidya, anadi avidya maya, because of which the infinite self, nitya shuddha mukta swarupa, sachidananda, akhandaika ekarasa, the homogeneous infinite self, is covered by ignorance and imagines that it is small, petty, it is full of pain. It is identifying with the body, with the senses, with the mind, with the intellect. That is the fall. And the longing to go back to your real abode is where religion begins. Swami Vivekananda defines religion as follows. Religion begins with the intensest dissatisfaction with your present state of affairs. Your present state is actually a degenerate state. This state is not a real state of your existence. To be able to assert the real state, you have to go higher. Just like the fish which has been taken and put on the throne, given all the honor, we get all the honor in the world. We may be awarded with the highest prize in this world. You may be praised by everybody. You may become the king of kings. But still there is a deep uneasiness within you, restlessness within you. You feel unhappy. Every person in this world, man or woman or child, rich or poor, king or beggar, a great scholar, an illiterate person, all of them are deeply in sorrow. There is restlessness. This was a great discovery of Buddha. Buddha discovered that there is dukkha everywhere. Dukkham, dukkham, sarvam dukkham. What does it mean? The deep existential sorrow. This sorrow is not because of something. It is not caused by something. It is just existence itself gives you this sorrow. If we had been good enough for that infinite, we would not have been born at all. Because we have been born on account of some desire, the fulfillment of the desire takes away all our time. Just like the fish in the story, the fish is restless to go back to water. Swami Ramakrishna therefore beautifully describes the situation by saying, when somebody is restless, somebody is unhappy, don't criticize him as saying he is so restless. All the restlessness that a person feels is because he wants to somehow go back to his real nature where all restlessness will stop. Yasmin sthito na dukkhe na gurunapi vichalyate, established in which he will not be agitated even by the greatest of sorrow. What is that state? You go back to your own real abode. The beautiful song which Narendranath, future Vivekananda, sang to Sri Ramakrishna during the earliest occasions. The first occasion he met him, second occasion he met him. The songs which he sang are so beautiful. The Brahmo songs. Manu chalo nija niketane, jabe ki he deen amar. Man chalo nija niketane, সংসার বিদেশে বিদেশীর বেশে ভ্রম কেন কারণে মন চলো নিজ নিকেতনে. Oh mind, go back to your own abode. Nija niketane, your own abode. Why are you roaming about in this foreign land to which you don't belong? And wearing this foreign dress, this is not yours. This abode is not yours. There is another song composed by Premik Maharaj in Andul. He was a very great composer and sadhaka, siddha, illumined soul. He was a close friend of Swami Brahmanandaji. There's a very fine song, the Kali Kirtan party, the Andul, when they used to come to Belur Math to sing. The last song which they sing is this. They sing and dance. Swami Brahmananda also, it seems, in the Math courtyard, he used to join them and dance and to go into Samadhi. Ar keno mone samsare. Oh mind, why are you in this samsara anymore? Go back to the abode. পক্ষ ভেদে ক্ষয় উদয় নায়ক চাঁদের সেই পুরে নাই ক্ষুধা তৃষ্ণা ভোগ বিপাশা পূর্ণানন্দ বিরাজে আর কেন মনে সংসারে যাই চলো সেই নগরে যেথা দিবানিশি পূর্ণ শশী আনন্দে বিরাজ করে যেথা দিবানিশি পূর্ণ শশী আনন্দে বিরাজ করে আর কেন মনে সংসারে যাই চলো সেই নগরে. Oh mind, why are you moving about this world in this samsara which doesn't belong to you? Come, go back to that abode where always there is bright sunshine and moonshine, where sun never sets, the moon sun never sets. Light of consciousness is shining everywhere. Go back to that abode. This Ananda Keval. Waves of bliss come and envelop you. There is no sorrow, there is no hunger, there is no thirst. Khuda Trishna Bhog Pipasa Purnananda Viraje. There is no Kshuda, there is no Trishna, there is no hunger, there is no thirst. Always great joy is there. Rabindranath composed a simple 4-line song of which Swami Vivekananda and Narendra was very fond. Bohe anantara, bohe nirantara, ananta anandadhara. Ananta anandadhara nirantara bohe. Non-stop, uninterruptedly, continuously, infinite stream of bliss is flowing. These are the great realizations which the rishis and the modern saints have realized. So you call up this Atman within through longing and prayer. We are feeling restless, we are feeling unhappy, we are passing through terrible times. So much of depression, unhappiness everywhere, and people quarreling, fighting with trivial small issues. Then what do? Call upon your own self. If you are Advaitically inclined, as Swami Vivekananda said, we answer our own prayers. When you pray to God, who is identical with your own self, you are invoking the powers of your own inner self. Bring them up. Why do you weep, my child? Call up your power within. Your infinite, divine, conscious nature alone will conquer, and not the dull, dead matter. Kinnamaro dishisakhe tvai sarva shakti amantrayasya bhagavan bhagadam swarupam trailokyamedadakhilam tava padamule atmaiva hi prabhavate na jadak kadachit. Swami Vivekananda's poem. In the midst of a letter to Swami Ramakrishna, he simply writes this small poem. Hey Sakhe, oh my friend, why are you weeping, my friend? In you is all power. Amantrayasa, call up this power within. Wake up, call up this power. Call, repeatedly call. Your Swarupa, your real nature is infinite. It is the Atman, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta, eternally pure, ever free, ever illumined, ever awakened. That's what you are in reality. Call up that power within. So the idea of Dakar Maton Dako, how many times Ramakrishna has mentioned this? Vyakul hoye taake dakte hoy, tobe tini dekha den. Vyakul hoye daka. Vyakul means with intense longing. You are restless. You are unable to bear this dual world anymore. Dvaita prapancha. Eating and sleeping and sense gratification and social society and nonsense is not worth wasting a life upon, Swami Vivekananda says. Everybody wants to socialize, the social media, then contacting everybody, internet friends and so on. Why don't you contact your own higher self? Unfortunately, the Lord himself is responsible, the Upanishad says, for making all the senses outgoing. The person who's created the senses, Swayambhu, he has made all the senses outgoing and therefore they go out, they're extrovert. And It requires enormous Herculean power to be able to turn all the senses inward. How? Desiring immortality, intensest longing to become immortal. How many times we have been born and we have died again, we are coming again and again. Are we not tired? We are not. Again and again it blows. Varamvar paisho aghat kano karo vrithai uddam. Swamiji says in the poem, Sakhara Prati, to your friend. Again and again you get blows after blows in this world. Why are you again running behind this samsara? আর কেন মনে সংসারে যাই চলো সেই নগরে? Why are you wallowing in the samsara anymore, my mind? Let's go back to that great region of illumination, the brightest of the bright, where the sun and the moon never set. The infinite light of consciousness constantly shines forth. What a joy! ডাকার মতন ডাকতে হয়, ব্যাকুল হয়ে ডাকতে হয়. Vyakulata can't be induced any more than hunger can be induced. It happens. You feel hungry. Not that you induce hunger. These are certain things which happen. See, Ramakrishna gives a beautiful example. The child, while going to sleep, told the mother, Mother, when I feel the call of nature, please wake me up. Haga যখন পাবে তুমি আমাকে তুলে দেবে. Then the mother said, my child, that feeling itself will wake you up. When you feel intense longing, you will not feel like eating anything. When you are upset with tremendous sorrow, the deepest sorrow, will you feel like eating? Will you feel like sleeping? Or when you have an exam tomorrow, and then you're terribly afraid of facing the exam, then you will not like to eat, you will not like to sleep, because the fear instinct overpowers, or the sorrow instinct overpowers. Now, rather than any instinct overpowering, can your viveka, the discernment between the real and the unreal, an understanding of the real nature of the Dvaita Prapancha, the world in which we live, can awaken you. Now the coronavirus, this time the COVID-19 pandemic, has given up a wake-up call. Oh man, wake up, wake up. Why do you waste your time in quarreling? Immediately after the pandemic is still perhaps not over, we do not know, a terrible war is brewing. Man is trying to kill man. Why? Because the great restlessness within. So unless the mind is cleansed of raga, dvesha, like and dislike, hatred and enmity, human civilization will never be peaceful and happy. The UNESCO preamble said, since war begins in the minds of men, it is in the minds of men that the defenses of peace should be built up. It is the mind which is important. This is where the bhakti, Vedanta, religion, all of them come in. The true religion is not ritualistic. It is not going to the temples and mosques and churches. It is not wearing this, not wearing that. It is not eating or fasting. These are all incidentals of religion. As Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan once defined religion, a religion is not doctrinal conformity nor ceremonial piety. It is participation in the wisdom of being. It is insight into reality. Again, another place he said, a religion is self-discovery, or rather a recovery. It is the soul's dialogue with itself. You want to transcend yourself. You want to enter into the infinite because that's your real nature. Why does the fish want to rush to water? The real abode of the fish is water. Our real abode is that infinite. We want to go back to the lap of that infinite. Why? There alone you'll find lasting happiness, lasting bliss and lasting peace. Yad bhuma vai tat sukham na alpe sukhamasti. In the infinite alone is joy and bliss. In small, finite things, there is no joy, there is no bliss. Kathopanishad. It says, Tamatmastham yena pasyanti dhiraha tesham sukham shashvatam netaresham. Only a person who has realized his innermost self, the Atman, as the infinite self, he alone gets infinite bliss. Naitaresham, nobody else. Tamatmastham yena pasyanti dhiraha tesham shanti shashvati netaresham. Only a person who has realized his inner self is infinite and pure, Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupa, ever free, ever awakened, ever illumined, ever pure. Only he or she, only that person can have a lasting peace and none else and none else. This is the eternal message of India, now being spoken through the voice of Sri Ramakrishna in this gospel. This is the underpinning of the entire religious and the spiritual fabric of India. The spiritual legacy, the cultural and the spiritual heritage of India. The entire thing rests on one sentence, Tarati Shokam Atmavid, Chandagopanishad. Narada goes to Sanat Kumara, Narada being a great scholar of the Vedas and the Vedanta and so many Vidyas. He says, I am deeply sorrowful. Goes to Sanat Kumara, the great sage, and says, Shochami, I am deeply sorrowful. Please teach me. Sanat Kumara smiles and says, please tell me what you know already, what you have learned already, and I will teach you further. Gives you a huge list. Rig Veda, Yajur Veda, Sama Veda, Atharva Veda, the four Vedas I have mastered. Siksha, Kalpa, Vyakaranam, Niruktam, Chando, Jyotishi. All the 6 Vedangas I have mastered. Sarpa Vidya, Nakshatra Vidya, Rashi Vidya, Dhana Vidya. So many kinds of Vidyas I have mastered. At the end of it, I am so full of misery. Shochami, I am miserable. I am so sorrowful. Shokasya param tarayutu is crying to Sanat Kumara, the Rishi, please take me across beyond this terrible ocean of sorrow. Then Sanat Kumara teaches him the Brahma Vidya, the Atma Vidya, Brahmatmaikya Vidya, the identity of the individual self as the Supreme Self. Tarati Shokam Atmavid, that is the Upanishadic statement. Atmavid, a person who has realized the self, he crosses over sorrow and he alone can cross over sorrow. Tameva viditva ati mrityumeti nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya nanyah pantha vidyate ayanaya Shrunvanta vishve amritasya putraha. Ye children of immortal bliss, listen, listen to the declaration which I am making. Only by realizing tameva viditva amritattvameti can you attain immortality. There is no other way to attain immortality except realizing yourself as the immortal self. Wake up, wake up. Swami Vivekananda writes in a letter, I preach nothing else but wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up, awake, 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 awake. The famous mantra in the Kathopanishad, of which Swami Vivekananda is particularly and especially fond, Uttishtata Jagrata Prapya Varan Nibodhata. Arise, awake. And having approached the illumined people, learn from them. Arise and awake. Don't be sleeping. Anadi avidya maya. Bhashyakara Shankara says, you have been sleeping in anadi avidya maya, in that beginningless ignorance. You are now sleeping, you are awake. So Ramakrishna uses a different terminology. Vyakul hoye take dakte hoy. Just like the fish, he's crying and calling, please put me back in water. Not because the fish is thinking, imagining and calling. It's the compulsion of the system. It can't live without water. A time comes when you blow after blows you get in life. Then he says, oh God, I don't want any more. This is called enough is enough. Shankaracharya calls this in Sanskrit, alam pratyayavan. Who is a person who is a spiritual aspirant? A person who longs for God, a person who seeks liberation, supreme liberation. He is alam pratyayavan, a person who is possessed of, endowed with the conviction of alam. Alam means enough, sufficient. No more. In Bengali we'll say arna. Arna, arna, arna. Enough is enough, no more. I have come again and again and again. How many more births and deaths will I pass through? Punarapi jananam, punarapi maranam, punarapi janani jathare shayanam, yah samsare khalu dustare, kripaya pare pahi murare, bhaja govindam, bhaja govindam, govindam bhaja mudhamate. Samprapte sannihite kale nahi nahi rakshati dukrinkarane. Being born and then dying, again coming to the mother's womb, round of births and death again and again and again. I'm tired of this. No more. Alam pratyayavan. Vyakul hoye dakte hoy. তোমরা যা করো নিরাকার সাধন তা খুব ভালো। ব্রহ্মজ্ঞান হলে ঠিক বোধ করবে ঈশ্বর সত্য আর সব অনিত্য। ব্রহ্ম সত্য জগন মিথ্যা। He says, see, no word of criticism or condemnation of any religion or any thought, or religious thought. The Brahma Samaj people did not believe in God with form. They are devoted to the formless aspect of God. Sri Ramakrishna encouraged them. Oh, you are doing sadhana of the formless aspect of God. Oh, that is excellent. That is very good. And he says, when you realize this aspect of God which you are worshipping, ठीक बोध करबे ईश्वरी सत्य सबनित्य. Then you will realize that God alone is truth. Everything else is impermanent, non-eternal. Brahma Satya Jagana Mithya. Brahman alone is truth, and this world is virtual. Mithya is not unreal, as it is wrongly sometimes translated. Now we know the virtual reality. I am doing this class and you, all of you are listening from wherever you are. Is this a real class? Not exactly. It is unreal? No, it is not unreal. We are listening, we are participating, we are able to appreciate. You're able to see me on the screen, able to hear me. So it is real, but not apparently fully real, but not unreal either. So this kind of quasi-reality is called a virtual reality called mithya. Mithya is a very misleading word in Vedanta. Very often people think it is unreal. Jagana mithya does not mean that Jagat doesn't exist. Creation was never there. Of course it is there. We see, we experience. Nahi drishte anupavannam nama. Shankara always says, that which is seen, pratyaksha and realized, that cannot be wished away. Is it absolutely real? No, because it is changing. Anything which is changing cannot be absolutely real. The only absolute reality is the changeless, infinite, nitya, shuddha, mukta, satchidananda swarupa, which is Brahman, realizable as the Atman. That is the only absolute Sat. Is there any absolute Asat? Yes. Simple conceptions or notions like the horn of a hare. Hare does not have a horn. Or Pandhyaputra, the son of a barren woman. Barren woman does not and cannot beget children. They are only simple words without meaning. Words or phrases which have no corresponding reality. They are absolute asat. The world is neither absolute sat nor is it absolute asat. So this category of existence which is neither absolute sat nor absolute asat is given technically called mithya. It's a technical word. It has nothing to do with unreality. We should constantly remember this. Vedanta is misconceived, misunderstood by many people, saying the Vedanta says the world is unreal. The world is not unreal. It is real, but not in the sense that you think the unchanging reality of Brahman is. It is virtually real. We can understand virtual reality during this pandemic much more. Everywhere virtual meetings taking place, online meetings taking place. Now it's a hybrid mode, partially physical, offline and partially online. It's called hybrid mode, blended mode, and a new word has been coined, how the language also changes. New words are being discovered and thrown up. Phygital mode, a combination of physical and digital, phygital mode. Very interesting the way the language develops. So the world is phygital. In a sense it is virtual, but in a sense it appears to be real. So when you actually intuit Brahman, realize Brahman, and the core of your being is your own self or the Atman, you will realize that Brahman alone is real, truth, the ultimate reality, and the Jagat is virtual. It cannot be called to be ultimately real. Jagat mithya. Sanatana Hindu dharme shakara nirakara dui mane. In the Sanatana Hindu dharma, the Hinduism, eternal religion of the Hindus, we accept both nirakara and sakara. Both the reality are God with form and God without form. Nana bhave ishwarer puja kore, shanta dasya sakhya vatsalya madhura. Ishvara is related to you in so many ways. You relate to him. It's called Pancha Bhava. In the Hindu religion, you think of yourself as mother and think of God as a child. Vatsalya Bhava. Like Yashoda to Krishna and Kaushalya to Ramachandra. You have a maternal love for God as Balagopala, God as a child Rama. Or Dasya Bhava like Hanuman, Mahavir. You are the eternal servant of the Lord. Nityakinkaro Bhavani. As Ramanuja would say, you are the eternal servant of the Lord. Or Sakhya Bhava like Arjuna is the Sakha, the friend of the Lord. And Madhura Bhava, like the Gopikas, think of Lord as a husband without even a touch of carnal love. There is no body, there is no fleshly love there, not even mental. It is pure, unselfish, spiritual love in which you feel your beloved is your very own. There is no possession. Swami Vivekananda talks about the triangle of love. 3 triangles of love. The first angle of this triangle of love, love knows no fear. The moment you have fear, there cannot be love. And love is no bargaining, is no expectation. I give so much of love and expect in return so much. There is no expectation in love. I just give love and that's it. This is the second. And you feel that love is union. You want to unite with the beloved. Your separate existence you do not want. The moment you have expectation, fear, separation, then you don't love. The highest form of love. Love is a very, very misused word in the modern days. Usually it is carnal, dealing with the flesh and the mind perhaps. But the divine love, prema bhakti, the word prema is a very highly and misunderstood, misused word. Often, even the great spiritual masters have used worldly allegory, worldly example to describe this divine love, so that we can understand. And Shanta Bhava, like the rishis, Shanta Upasita, Upashantoyam Atma, Brahman is Shanta. Shantam Shivam Advaitam Chaturtham Manyante Sa Atma Saviggeyaha Mandakopanishad. Brahman is Shanta, Brahman is peaceful. So your whole mind and heart and the body and the senses are covered with, filled with extraordinary peace. And you worship the infinite as a peaceful, Shanta Upasita. A relationship with the infinite, with the Lord, with the Ishvara, is a true peace. Not the ordinary kind of peace where restlessness comes to an end. As Jesus the Christ said, the peace that passeth understanding. Atyantam sukhamashnute, atyanta shanti, atyantaki shanti. The supreme peace. রোশন চৌকিওয়ালারা একজন শুধু পো ধরে বাজায়, অথচ তাহার বাঁশির স্বাদ ফোকার আছে। কিন্তু আরেকজন আরও স্বাদ ফোকার আছে, সে নানা রাগ রাগিনী বাজায়। He is telling them indirectly, you only harp upon God without form, nirakara. It is just like a person playing the flute, Nadaswaram they used to call in the South India, and one person always is just to keep the swara proper. But you have so many holes. So you play with this. You play with so many holes and so many different varieties of ragas and tunes come up. Raga Ragini Bajai. So enjoy God in innumerable forms. As Nirakara and Sakara, in the Sakya Bhava, in the Vatsalya Bhava, Madhura Bhava, Dasya Bhava, Shanta Bhava, and how many varieties of forms we enjoy God. Ramakrishna used to say, I'm a glutton in the spiritual field. A glutton is a person who wants to eat and eat and eat. Not because he is hungry, but because he wants to taste different kinds of food. He is never satiated with the food which he tastes. Insatiation constantly goes on tasting, sometimes sweet, sometimes bitter, sometimes hot, sometimes sweet. Constantly he wants to taste. Chinese food, Hungarian food, American food, Brazilian food, Indian food, Punjabi food, Chinese food, Punjabi food and Madrasi food, South Indian food, North Indian food. So many varieties of food he wants to taste because the palate is so vibrant and strong. He gives a simple example, worldly example, to make us understand how when you long for God, vyakul hoye take daka. With tremendous longing you call on Him, you'll never be satiated. Now you call on God as Nirakara. Totapuri, the Advaita Guru of Ramakrishna, taught him several kinds of meditation of the Nirakara sadhana. He said, imagine yourself as a fish swimming blissfully and happily in a huge water reservoir. Then you think of yourself as a bird flying in the vast infinite sky happily. So enjoy God as formless, then enjoy God with the form, as your beloved, Madhura Bhava, as your Sakha, Sakya Bhava, as your master, Dasya Bhava, and Shanta Bhava, as your child, Vatsalya Bhava. Innumerable ways you enjoy Him. You enjoy Him as Kali, as Durga, as the female goddess Devi, or Krishna, or Rama, or the Avatara Purusha, or Ganesha, or Kartikeya, or Shiva, Vishnu. Innumerable ways we enjoy Him. They are all one. Ekam sad vipra bahudha vadanti. Sages call it through various names. The one infinite principle. Just like one doesn't want to eat the same kind of food every day, you feel stale, you feel bored, you feel uneasy. Oh, why do you cook the same kind of food every day? I want to eat something new, fresh. The same thing is cooked in different ways. It is the same ingredient. So let us now enjoy God in innumerable ways, and the aim and end of human life is to intuit God as the infinite and the absolute, and rejoice through the divine love of God. Sing and dance and rejoice. Rejoice and be exceeding glad, as Christ said in the Bible. Live a godly, God-intoxicated, divine life of wisdom, of purity, of infinite divine love. This is the message, for which longing, earnestness is most vital. Vyakulata. Om Niranjanam Nityamanantarupam Bhaktanukampa Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidhyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Shri Ramakrishna.